She wasn't sent to marry him, she was sent to break. That's what everyone whispered when Clara stepped off the wagon, her round face flushed from the heat, her eyes red from crying. Dust clung to her plain dress as the villagers sneered and pointed. "That's the punishment girl," one of them said, the spoiled one from the city who mocked her classmates and disrespected her elders. They sent her to live with that poor farmer out there, old, broke, and alone. But what no one knew was that the man they called poor was anything but. Clara had grown up surrounded by glitter and glass, the daughter of a wealthy merchant who gave her everything except kindness. Money had fed her, but it hadn't fed her soul. By 18, she had learned to use words as weapons, mocking others before they could mock her, hiding her pain behind cruelty and laughter. Her classmates called her fat and heartless, and one day, after she humiliated a timid girl during a school charity event, the board and her father decided enough was enough. She was sent to live in the countryside, to learn humility. Her punishment was to serve an old farmer named Elias Reed for 6 months. The villagers said he was a recluse, living on barren land with little more than a horse and an old barn. The idea disgusted Clara. "A poor farmer?" she cried. "How can I survive there?" But her father's cold eyes told her there was no choice. When she arrived, she expected a small hut. Instead, she found endless hills rolling under the golden sunset. The farmhouse looked worn but solid. A tall, bearded man stood by the gate, his hat shadowing his eyes. He looked like he'd been carved from stone, silent, weathered, strong. "You Clara?" he asked simply. She crossed her arms. "Unfortunately, yes." He gave no reply, only turned and walked toward the fields. "Work starts at sunrise," he said over his shoulder. That first week was pure misery. Clara refused to get up early, complained about the smell, and threw tantrums when asked to help feed the animals. Her soft hands blistered, and she cried into her pillow at night, hating everyone, especially the quiet man who never scolded her, never raised his voice, just watched her with calm eyes that made her feel seen. She noticed strange things, too. He never seemed to buy supplies from the local market, yet everything on the farm was in abundance: milk, grain, vegetables, fruit. He had workers who came at night, dressed neatly and respectful, calling him sir, when they thought she wasn't listening. One evening, as the sun sank low, Clara sat outside, her hands raw, her heart strangely quiet. Elias walked over with a lantern and a bowl of stew. "You're learning," he said softly. She frowned. "Learning what? To live like a nobody?" He shook his head. "To live like someone who's worth something, not because of money." Those words stung. For the first time, she had no cruel reply. Weeks passed, and Clara began to change without realizing it. She started waking before dawn, helping the animals, washing her clothes by hand. Her laughter became real, her face softer, her heart lighter. The villagers, who once mocked her, began to greet her kindly when she came into town. One afternoon, while Elias was away, Clara wandered to the edge of the property and saw something she had never noticed: miles and miles of lush green fields, stretching as far as the eye could see. Workers harvested in silence under the sun, tractors moved like tiny dots in the distance, and every truck bore the same logo: Reed Agricultural Group. Her heart stopped. She had seen that name before, in magazines, on billboards, even in business news her father used to read. It was one of the biggest landowners in the state. Elias wasn't poor. He was one of the richest men in the country. That night, when he returned, she confronted him. "Why didn't you tell me who you really are?" she asked, her voice trembling. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Because you wouldn't have listened. You came here thinking you were being punished. I wanted you to see what real wealth looks like: peace, purpose, and dignity. Not gold." Tears burned in her eyes. "So, this was all a lesson?" He shook his head. "No, Clara. It became something else. I watched you fight your own reflection and come out stronger. You're not the same girl who arrived here crying about mud on her shoes. You're someone I'm proud of." For the first time in her life, someone said they were proud of her, not because she looked pretty or behaved well, but because she changed. That night, Clara cried under the stars, not from shame, but from gratitude. Months later, her father came to fetch her. But when he arrived, he didn't find a spoiled child. He found a young woman with calloused hands, sunburned cheeks, and eyes that held quiet strength. Elias stood beside her, silent as always, but his gaze said everything. Her father, astonished, said, "You've changed, Clara." She smiled faintly. "No, father. I've learned what wealth really means." As she packed her things, Elias handed her a small wooden box. Inside was a key, simple, unpolished. "This is for the North House," he said. "It's yours if you ever want to come back. Everyone deserves a place where they became who they truly are." Years later, Clara did return, not as a punishment, but as a partner. Together, she and Elias built schools, farms, and homes for the poor, turning that once dusty land into a place of hope. And when people asked her about the punishment that changed her life, she smiled and said, "They sent me to learn humility, but I found love, purpose, and a man richer than gold, not because of what he owned, but because of who he was."